President of Afghanistan delivered a televised address to the nation today as the Taliban continue to gain ground in the country. In a pre-recorded speech, President Ashraf Ghani pledged to fight back against the militant group.
Though I know you are worried about your current situation and your future, I assure you that as your president, my focus is on preventing the expansion of instability, violence, and the displacement of my people. As part of a historical mission, I will do my best to stop this imposed conflict on the Afghan people, resulting in the further killing of innocent.
Today was Ghani's first public appearance since the Taliban captured more than 18 of the nation's 34 provinces. The militant group continues to step up its offensive as the United States and other foreign troops fully withdraw from the country. As the situation continues to deteriorate in Afghanistan, NATO is calling on the Taliban to return to peace negotiations with the Afghan government. Terry Schultz has more.
After allies met to discuss the rapid Taliban advance, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg warned militants they would never be considered a legitimate government if their victory is not achieved through political negotiations. This is the same message sent by the European Union this weekend, many times before by Western interlocutors, to no avail. The Taliban has now taken Afghanistan's second and third largest cities, and fighting is moving toward the capital. Several NATO governments announced Friday they would close their embassies, at least temporarily. The U.S. is evacuating all but a small, essential diplomatic staff. Stoltenberg says, for now, NATO plans to maintain its presence in Kabul, with the aim, he says, to support the Afghan government and security forces as much as possible. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz.
The Department of Homeland Security is warning about the risk of targeted violence around the 20th anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. NPR's Brian Naylor reports the agency is also monitoring potential threats related to pandemic restrictions.
The National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin describes what it calls a diverse and challenging heightened threat environment in the nation. It says Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula continues to attempt to inspire U.S.-based individuals who are susceptible to violent extremist influences. And it says homegrown, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists continue to pose a threat. The Terrorism Advisory Bulletin notes non-specific calls for violence on social media based on conspiracy theories about perceived election fraud and the reinstatement of former President Donald Trump. Other incitements focus on anticipated COVID-19 restrictions. Brian Naylor, NPR News.
You're listening to NPR News in Washington. Students head back into classrooms this month, in some cases for the first time since the pandemic began. And this week, we've seen plenty of headlines about back-to-school hiccups, like one Florida district asked hundreds of students to quarantine only 2 days into the school year. And in Georgia, some schools have already announced they are going virtual after starting the year in person. Claire Lombard, NPR's education team, has been talking to school leaders. Kids inside classrooms after nearly a year and a half in all these places around the country. How is it all going so far?
A lot of kids are really, really excited to be back in class. Some of them haven't been back in over a year. But of course, the Delta variant of the coronavirus is spreading Washington and Oregon are too, and Virginia just joined that list this week.
Yeah, and then there are other places where masking is only optional, right? In states where school leaders are actually banned from mandating masks, what are these superintendents doing?
Right, well, some superintendents are requiring them anyway. That's happening in Texas, Florida, and Arizona. These superintendents are watching virus numbers go up, and they're facing off against their state leaders who say masks should not be mandated in schools. Here's Dallas School Superintendent Michael Hinojosa when he made the announcement that masks would be required when kids head back to school this coming Monday.
I need to implement whatever safety protocols I feel are in the best interest of our school district.
And there's something else Hinojosa mentioned that other school leaders are also contending with right now. Earlier this year, some states, including Texas, Illinois, and New Jersey, they all adopted measures that effectively put limits on remote learning. And that's gotten tricky now because if cases get high enough, it leaves schools with a lot fewer options. In Dallas, Hinojosa said his district is looking at relaunching a virtual option for students, even though right now there isn't state funding for one.
And we should keep in mind, most of the students heading back to K-12 schools aren't vaccinated, right?
Exactly, yeah. Kids under 12 aren't eligible for the vaccine yet, and according to the CDC, vaccination rates for older kids are still far behind the rates for adults.
That is it.
So-
Here's Claire Lombardo. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Elsa.
Now, mainstream country music lyrics have taken their fair share of knocks for sounding all, kind of the same. Like, beer, truck, girls in tight jeans, beer, truck, America. Oh.
Now that's from a TikTok video made by Erin Chambers in October of last year. By day, she teaches music to elementary schoolers in Charlotte, North Carolina. But Chambers has also amassed over 700,000 followers on TikTok. She's known for social justice content, but that's not all she posts about.
So it was talking about like a lot of men's countries, beers and trucks and that kind of thing, and then women's countries.
This next story may not be suitable for all listeners. Apple says its next iPhone and iPad update will help catch child predators through a sophisticated photo matching system. Privacy advocates worry the system could create a backdoor on all Apple devices. NPR's Bobby Allen takes a closer look, and we also want to note that Apple is among NPR's financial supporters. Here's Bobby.
I recently had a conversation with Anne. We're only using Anne's middle name to preserve her family's privacy. About a decade ago, a family member was arrested for taking sexually abusive photos of her child and sharing them online.
Imagine the very worst thing that has ever happened to you was recorded and then it's shared repeatedly for other people.
NPR's international desk is taking us to some captivating places we might long to visit in this time of restricted travel. Today, a Russian institution, the dacha. The word means summer house, but Russians will tell you a dacha is much more than just an escape from the city. Life at the dacha is a state of light. Reporting from where else? His in-laws at dacha, 80 miles from Moscow. There's NPR's Lucy Kim.
It's just after 3:30 in the morning, and the eastern horizon is already all pink. The rest of the sky is a pale blue. In just a couple of more minutes, more of the sun will come rising over the tree line in the distance.
Summer days are long in Russia. The summer itself is short. Every living being takes advantage of the warm weather. That includes my 15-month-old son, Leo, who's trying to get his parents' attention from the next room. Morning, sunshine. It's still early, so we take Leo into our bed. But he has a noisy toy that reminds us of the city life we've been trying to forget. Before long, everyone else is also up. Father-in-law Alexander is going through the ritual of brewing coffee on the portable gas stove in the dacha's tiny kitchen. Breakfast consists of cereal, fresh berries, and thick slabs of bread with cheese. My mother-in-law, Tatiana, built the dacha in 1992, the year after the Soviet Union collapsed. It's a little cottage with vinyl siding, 2 rooms on the bottom, and 1 room on top.
At first we lived without electricity, she says. At night we sat around a kerosene lamp and played Monopoly. The half-acre property is one of half a dozen at the end of an overgrown path on land that once belonged to a state-owned farm. The dacha used to be surrounded by wheat and oat fields, she says. We spent our days in the woods gathering berries and mushrooms. Now there's a garden and lawn to take care of. The drive from Moscow can take up to 4 hours depending on traffic. Tatiana has often thought about selling the dacha, but she just can't let go of it. Here all those city problems just disappear, she says, and the wilderness clears your mind. Most Russians live in cities, which empty out during the summer as people seek freedom from their stuffy apartments and the chance to reconnect with the Russian countryside. Nowadays, a dacha can refer to any country house, from a 2-room shack to an oligarch's imitation French chateau. But most dachas are very simple. Since there's no running water at our dacha, the call of nature is answered in the outhouse. And we carry all our water from the well. There's always something to do at the dacha, and it's that existential physical activity stressed-out city dwellers crave. I meet Andrei Kuznetsov, who's piling up firewood in a nearby village. During the pandemic, he lost his job as a manager in Moscow. Now he has the time to spend his days fixing up his parents' quaint old house, with intricate woodwork around the windows. Country living, he says, is 80% hard work and 20% romantic lifestyle. Andrei and his family have a large vegetable garden, chickens, and 5 goats. We also have fun, he says, like when we go swimming. Russian summers can be hot. At a nearby lake, they meet a family cooling off. Maria Sadova, a doctor in Moscow, is spending a month at her dacha with her 2 daughters. You can't compare it to anything, she says. You fall asleep in nature and wake up in nature and sleep a lot better than in the city. Marina says she doesn't need to go all the way to a resort in Turkey or Egypt just to swim in the pool. Back at our dacha, baby Leo is playing with one of the dogs on the lawn. When the sun goes down a little, we head into the woods to look for blueberries. The path takes us through a swamp, and on the way, we're attacked by swarms of bloodthirsty flies. We decide there are more flies than berries and return to the dacha. Our neighbor Galina is mowing her lawn. She's an old family friend, and we go visit her. My wife Svetlana sits with the baby on the same swing set where she once played as a girl. Galina, now a grandmother, remembers when her children were young. Our kids put on shows right here, she says. They'd hang up curtains on the swing set, make their own costumes, and hand out tickets to the villagers. Now, a new generation has returned to those swings. Pretty soon, it's bedtime for Leo. Back at the dacha, I mix some water in a plastic tub, and in goes the baby for his bath. Outside, Alexander is preparing shashlik, Russian for barbecue. Soon, it's time to put chicken, sausages, and eggplants on the grill. Finally, dinner is ready. It's time for a toast. After dinner, I go outside one last time. It's past midnight, and the northern summer sky is now more or less dark.
Nighttime at the Dodge is amazing. You don't hear any of the sounds of the city. No cars or motorcycles. Just the whirring of hundreds and thousands of millions of insects in this field of time. It's time to hit the hay. In just a few hours, the sun and our baby will be up again. Lucy Kim, NPR News, in Yaroslavl region, Russia.
This message comes from NPR sponsor HomeTap, the smart new way to access your home's equity without a loan. Receive cash in as little as 3 weeks to pay off debt, fund renovations, and more. No monthly payments, no interest. Get a personalized estimate at hometap.com/NPR.
Hey, this is Raulio. I'm 6 years old and my mommy just picked me up from the first day of summer camp where I saw a rattlesnake while hiking. You're listening to the NPR Politics podcast, which was recorded at
12:03 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, August 13th.
Things may have changed by the time you hear this. Okay, enjoy the show.
I don't know if that is like so cute or absolutely so scary, because my kids right now are at camp and I'm a little bit nervous, where they're walking.
He sounded a lot cooler about seeing a rattlesnake than I would have been if I was
Hey there, it's the NPR Politics podcast. I'm Melissa McCollin. I cover the White House.
I'm Frank Ordonez.
And I'm Susan Davis. I cover Congress.
And as of Friday morning, the Taliban now have control of at least a dozen provincial capitals in Afghanistan, effectively putting them in control of 2/3 of the country. In other words, the very power the U.S. ousted some 20 years ago when it invaded Afghanistan is now on the brink of taking over the country again. This comes alongside news that the U.S. will be sending back about 3,000 troops to help evacuate the embassy. So, Franco, let's start with President Biden and his White House. How are they all defending what is going on in Afghanistan? I mean, frankly, I'm under their watch.